Hey yogis, welcome to Limitless Yoga Studio Online. My name is Kelsey Wright. This is Watson, and today is actually a really special class. It's going to be low back therapy. So the entirety of the class is going to be built around really making your low back feel great. And specifically with the low back, we're going to be working on strengthening the muscles that really support it and hold it into place, but we're also going to be working on releasing those muscles that are tight and cranky and tend to cause that chronic tension and pain that you feel in that area. So you're going to need some supplies, 2 yoga blocks, 2 tennis balls or myofascial release balls, and then some kind of either yoga strap or belt, just something that we're going to use for in the middle of class to give ourselves a little feedback when it comes to core work. So something similar to a belt or a strap. And then once you're ready, go ahead and put on your favorite playlist, whatever you need, roll on back, and we're going to get started in a position that is actually really nice to release pressure from the SI joint area. So this is something you could definitely use anytime you are laying on your back to give yourself a little release in that area. So as I lay back, I'm going to take my feet about mat distance apart, maybe wider depending on how long your legs are. And then I'm going to allow the knees just to gently cave in towards one another. I'm not forcing them in this position. I'm just letting gravity take over. But what this will do is create space in this SI joint area. It'll broaden that low back area. It feels pretty nice. So you can play with taking the heels closer to the body or further away, whatever's going to feel really good, whatever's going to feel more natural to you. Go ahead and take that position. Arms down by the sides. Close down the eyes. And we want to start with some breath work, specifically in this class to basically take inventory of what's going on. And we want to do this both at the beginning of class and at the end so we can figure out what we did to influence the low back, what worked, what made it feel better. So as you slowly start to build your breath, each inhale filling up the belly, the ribs, and the chest, we're going for max capacity here. So as you inhale, you might imagine the rib cage opening up like an umbrella, equal on all sides. You might try to inhale until you feel a stretch across the belly or between the ribs or across the collarbones. You might inhale to what you think is full and then try to sip up just a little bit of extra air at the tippy top. And then just be patient with your body as you build this breath, because it might take multiple cycles of breath to really stretch out the lungs and to create that new space in the torso. So as you continue to breathe, I want you to send a few exhales down the back line of the body. So from the back of the head all the way through the tip of the tailbone. And there's going to be 3 questions. I just want you to log the answers away for later. So as you send an exhale down the back line of the body, I want you to notice, is there anything that's lifted up off the mat? You don't need to do anything about it. Just notice if there's any spaces. Then take another exhale down the back line of the body and notice if there's any differences between the right side and the left side. Does something feel heavier or lighter? Something feel lifted or asymmetrical? Again, not doing anything about it, just logging that answer away. And then finally, as you breathe down the back line of the body, are there any sensations, good or bad? Just give them a name or a number, whether it's something aching at a 4 or sharp pain at a 7. Whatever it is, just take, even if you don't have a word for it, just kind of put a little flag in that area, recognizing where it is and what it feels like. And one more big cycle of breath here. Go ahead and flutter open the eyes. All right, we're going to take the knees apart. Keep the feet as wide as they are. Drop both knees lazily over to the right, like a very slow set of windshield wipers. And then lazily over to the left. So we want to do this a couple times. If it feels better to take the feet further away from the body, feel free. We're not forcing the thigh bones down here. We're just letting gravity do its thing. But we want to roll the thigh bones around in the sockets, kind of just massaging across that tailbone area. We're going to take one more right, one more left. Maybe noticing how close the thigh bones get to the floor, how much tightness there is in the outer hips. and then bring the knees back to center. I'm going to take the feet only hip distance apart and place the hands down by the sides. As I press into the feet, I want to roll up the spine one vertebrae at a time, reach back, maybe touching the floor behind me, and then as I come down, I really want to fiercely tuck my tailbone towards my heels, lengthening out that low back area. Press to lift, not necessarily to get as high as possible, but just to lift, and then really pull the tailbone down towards the heels, lengthening that last few vertebrae of the spine. We got 2 more like this. Peel yourself up off the mat. Again, don't over squeeze the glutes. We're not trying to get that high. And then really tuck the tailbone towards the heels. We're trying to get that length. Last one. Reach up, rise up, and then lengthen at the low back as you come all the way down. All right, from here, we're going to take our right knee in towards the chest. Now, be very specific about the toes here. As I reach through the foot, I want a pointy ballerina foot. And then as I bend the knee, I'm going to flex the ankle. So what this is doing is flossing the sciatic nerve. So as you reach and as you bend, if you feel any kind of zinginess through the back of the leg, this might mean that the sciatic is a bit irritated. So doing 10 of these every day is going to help lubricate that sciatic nerve and get you some relief. If you're feeling nothing at all, fantastic. That's exactly what eventually everybody wants here. Okay. All right. So after 10 of those, we're going to go ahead and take that right ankle on top of the left knee. So you've got this cross of the legs. Very slowly securing that low belly, you're going to take the foot over towards the left, and then you're going to bring it right back to center. So make sure your low back isn't doing this motion. It's your belly, it's your core that is slowly rocking this shape back and forth. So this is kind of a bit of a massage for that tailbone area. We're going to take one more. And then on this last one, we'll take it all the way across and just let it settle. So if that means the footprint is on the floor, great. If it means hovering, no worries. I'm going to keep that kneecap pointed up towards the ceiling. I've got a big breath here. And then again, securing that low belly, I'm going to bring it back to center. My left hand is going to reach for that right ankle, and I'm going to start to pull the foot across the body, and I'm going to really feel a nice, deep outer hip stretch here. This is one of my favorites. And then what's great about this is I've got a lot of wiggle room here. I can move the knee and the foot around and kind of play with angles until I find the exact perfect one for me. So everyone's going to look a little bit different here. Some people knee to heart is the best stretch. Sometimes moving the foot further across is better. So just play with that, find what works for you, and take a big cycle of breath here. This is a really good stretch to do as you're laying in bed, either before you sleep or when you wake up before you get out of bed. All right, we're going to place that right foot on the floor and do the other side. So we're back to that sciatic flossing. We're going to go pointy toes on the left side and then bend the knee as you flex the foot. And again, if you feel nothing, then that's ideal. That's exactly what we want. But for people that have sciatic issues, you might feel a little electricity, a little zinginess. We're not trying to overdo this motion. We're not trying to really get an exercise or a stretch here. We're just massaging that that sciatic nerve back and forth. So again, at the end of the day, if you feel nothing, perfect. After this last one, we're going to cross the ankle on top of the knee, firm up the belly, and start that rocking motion back and forth. So don't go so far that your low back is then working to get you back, all right? So you be the judge of that. We don't want to irritate anything that we're trying to massage out and relax. We got 2 more rocks back and forth. And then after this last one, we're going to go ahead and let it drop all the way down, knowing that it might not touch the floor. That's okay. If it does, cool. Keep the knee pointed up towards the ceiling. You're going to feel probably a nice outer hip / low back stretch on the left side. Take a big breath here. And then firming up the belly, bring this whole thing back to center. Right hand reaches for the left ankle and then pull the footprint across the body. This side is completely different. So as you move around, you might find something completely different from the other side that works. You might also notice that one side tends to be a bit grumpier than the other. That's very normal. It's always good to recognize which side that is and then kind of just log that away so that we can figure out why that side is talking to you a little bit more than the other. One more big breath here. And then release this leg all the way down. All right, bring both knees into the chest. We're going to rock and roll up and down the spine. What's important here is that you feel each and every vertebrae. We want the brain to connect to that structure. One more, and then I'll meet you in a seated position with the feet on the floor. I'm going to put some weight into the hands, and I'm going to take the feet about mat distance apart. I'm going to repeat those windshield wipers, but this time sitting up, it might feel a little bit different. So back and forth. Take your time. Kind of be lazy about it and just notice how close are the thigh bones getting to the floor. How much of a stretch do I feel in the outer hips? And then the next time that your windshield wipers are over to your right, I want you to pause, climb up to stack the spine, sit up nice and tall, big inhale, and then exhale, turn to face the back of your mat, turning this into a mild twist. I really like this pose as well for the low back. It just feels so nice. Bringing yourself back to center, windshield wiper the knees over to the left, sitting up nice and tall, stacking the spine, big inhale, and then exhale, turn towards the back of your mat, take a little twist. All right, all the way back to center. We're going to bring the knees up and pause. You can place some weight in the hands, or if it's more comfortable to grab on the shins, you can do that. I'm going to relax the chin to the chest and just two nice big neck rolls. I want to get any pops and creaks here. Be careful not to skip any spaces. Your brain will try to skip spaces that you've had tension in the past. So just be careful that we're not avoiding that, because we don't want to lose that range of motion. Once you've done at least one in each direction, you're going to sweep the feet back behind you and you're going to land in tabletop. So we're going to land hands and knees, shoulders stacked on top of wrists and hips stacked on top of knees. Spread the fingers out wide so you've got gloves, not mittens, and then gaze between the thumbs. On your inhale, gently drop the ribs down towards the floor. On your exhale, push into the palms, arch your ribs, and tuck the tailbone towards the nose. And then as you flow through the spine here, just recognize that that spine is comprised of lots of little moving parts, and we want to be mindful that we are utilizing every link in the chain. We're not leaving anyone behind here, all right? So just make sure that it's not one big movement up and down. You're being mindful of trying to get each and every little piece and part doing its job. After this last one, up and down, you're going to come back to a neutral spine. That means halfway between those two poses with a firm belly. I'm going to slide my hips over to the right, just kind of let your hips get sassy, and you're going to feel a nice outer hip stretch. Now you can play with the angles, kind of moving your tush back or forward to find something that might be a little bit more effective for you. And then after a big cycle of breath, we're going to head over to the left. Same thing, just slide your hips over to the left and then decide what works. Maybe forward, maybe back. Maybe you hit the perfect spot on the first time. Take a big breath here. And then back to center. All right, you're going to need a block for this next part, so have it handy. A lot of the dysfunction and pain from this area comes from unevenness. So we're just going to kind of do a little quick check on that. I'm going to place a block on my low back area, so right where my spine comes into my hips. That's our SI joint. And we want to make sure that that block is level and that it doesn't feel tilted in one direction or the other. Okay, we're going to bring in some movement here, but what's important is regardless of what our arms and legs are doing, we want this structure to be supported and even and neutral. All right, so from here, can you slowly start to stick your right leg back behind you and immediately notice if that right hip starts to lift? All right, we want that block to stay even and level. Okay, you can choose to stay here. You're going to start to feel some heat building in this left hip, which is supporting you right now. If you want a little more, I'm going to take my left arm forward with the gaze down. Okay, my belly button is lifting to the spine so that I feel this really strong support on the front line of the body. My outer hip is squeezing up underneath me so I feel support from the side bodies. And that block is creating that levelness that I need in the back line of the body. All right, stay here, especially if you're shaking a little bit, or if you want to offer a challenge, that knee to elbow tap is going to start moving the levers of the body. Now, what's the tendency here is as that leg kicks back, it's going to lift too high and that block's going to get uneven. So it's a bit of a challenge to know that we can move the arms and the legs and stay neutral in the low back. So take two more, whether it's in stillness or in movement, noticing if the block is shifting at all, and then bring it back down to hands and knees. Second side, kick your left foot back, immediately noticing if you're going too high. Make sure and keep that feedback at the forefront of your brain so that you're not shifting in the low back throughout class. Maybe add that right hand in, keep the support of the belly, keep that long line of the body stay here, or if you want that challenge, maybe it's knee to elbow tops. So just doing something like this 10 times a day can really help that low back area just by bringing awareness to the fact that we should remain pretty strong and stable to that area. We don't want it to be super asymmetrical, causing problems throughout the day. We got one more here, and then bring it back down to hands and knees. We'll get rid of that block. All right, take a moment to hug the thumbs in towards one another until you feel the shoulder heads suck into their sockets. Use that support to step back into plank with your feet hip distance apart. And then as you press the hips high, relax the chin to the chest. If you want to walk out your heels, kind of pedaling them to get through the calves, feel free. Once you feel a little more comfortable in the lower body, go ahead and set it. And then notice that your shoulders have the tendency to squish up towards the ears. We don't want the shoulders up in the ears, but we also don't want them locked down our back. So can you push but not shove? Give a little bit of support, but not in too much in either direction. Take a big breath. All right, looking forward, take as many steps as you need to get to the top of your mat. Once you're there, inhale, fingertips to shins. Exhale, forward fold, bend the knees if you need. Inhale, rise up, get nice and tall. And then exhale, take the hands to heart center. All right, set your blocks up, top of the mat, shoulder distance apart. What we really, really want to be specific about in this class, because it is low back therapy, is the idea of hinging and not bending. So many times when we fold forward, we create this kind of candy cane shape of the spine, and we come over in this position, which is really going to be stressful on that low back area. So what we want to do is keep it neutral, like we just did practicing with the block right here. In order to keep it neutral, we've got to bend the knees and hinge at the hips. So you want to act like that block is there constantly. So we'll be folding like this. So this is a hinge, which is keeping all that pressure and compression out of the low back, as opposed to that fold here, where we're really adding a lot of stress to that area. So be very specific about your forward folds here, and I'll cue everything for you. All right, here we go. Feet hip distance apart. The natural tendency of the body is to sway the hips forward, which again is offering compression, which we don't want here. So think about pulling the hips back, stacking them right on top of the heels. Okay, little micro bends in the knees. Here we go. Inhale, hands up overhead. Exhale, as you fold, bend the knees, hinge the hips, try to keep that really level low back. I'm going to use the blocks here for support. Okay, from here, I'll step the right foot back and drop the right knee. Hands to the hips. I'm going to drop this right hip as low as I feel comfortable with until I feel a stretch right there where the quad meets the core, that hip flexor area. Now, if I really put my awareness in that area, it's going to feel more like a skin deep kind of stretch. I want to change that. So come right back up, stack the spine, deeply tuck your tailbone. So scoop your butt up underneath you. You're going to feel a much deeper stretch on that side. If you want to increase it, keep the scoop as you lean forward. So keep that tuck of the butt as I lean forward. Now we're getting the psoas, which is the deepest hip flexor muscle, and it's the one that attaches to your low back. So if it's tight, it can pull and tug on that area. So one more breath, tucking the tailbone, leaning forward. And then go ahead and slowly come back to that neutral spine. All right, with the hands down, I'm going to lift my back knee, slide back into plank, rock the tiptoes, lower to the belly, maybe using the knees first. Okay? All right, from here, I'm going to bend both knees, windshield wiper the feet right and left, just getting heavy and lazy here, but feeling that massage-like quality as those thigh bones roll around in the sockets. We're here for 3, for 2, and last one, glue your toenails to the floor. Now, I want you to imagine your belly button suction cupping up off of the mat, so all of a sudden we have space here. As soon as you do that, release it, relax it. As you lift it up off the floor, the tailbone will feel like it's tucking, and then let it go. Do that 5 more times. What we're trying to do is get the lowest of the low core to activate, and as that low core draws in, notice how much longer your low back is. So instead of this dip here, when I activate the core, it lengthens and gets rid of that compression. Okay, curling the toes, come back out onto plank. If you want to use the knees, go ahead. Press back into down dog. I love to bend my knees a ton in down dog, especially when low back classes, because you can push into the hands and really lengthen that low back area. Looking forward, stepping forward, top of the mat. Inhale, fingertips to shins, hinging, not bending, forward fold. Inhale, rise up. We got one more round. Again, hinging, not bending, bend the knees. Keep that low back neutral. Maybe use the blocks for support. Okay, left foot steps back, drop the knee. I'm going to get heavy in this left hip crease, lunging forward, maybe using the blocks underneath my hands if I need, and then feeling that stretch right there in that hip crease. Okay, to deepen that, I'm going to rise up, hands to hips, scoop the tailbone underneath me, kind of curving, and then lean forward. The more I scoop the pelvis, the deeper that psoas stretch. So lean forward, tuck your tailbone, take a big breath here. Here comes Watson, making his debut. Hi, buddy. All right, and then bring it back to neutral. Hands are going to come down. I'm going to slide back into plank, and then I'm going to come down to the belly. We're going to isolate the sides this time, so bend the right knee, come up over and across, just as far as what's comfortable. Bring it back to center, switch it out. Bend the left knee, up over and across, and bring it back to center. We got one more in each direction. reach across, knowing that everybody's going to look different here. We're just going for a feeling of that stretch and that twist. Okay, once you're back to center, glue the toenails to the floor. 5 more of those lifts. Can you lift? It'll feel like the hip points are moving to the rib cage, and then bring it back down. So this is not about just emptying out the air in your lungs. This is about actively belting that low core around your waist, as if you've got a pair of pants on and you're tightening the waistline. All right, hands to the rib cage. Maybe use hands and knees to come back up into plank. Down dog, maybe that low back down dog if you liked it. And then looking forward, we're going to step with our feet mat distance apart this time, bend the knees a ton. Right hand goes down, left hand goes up. Now press into the left heel and start to feel that outer left hip talk to you. That outer left hip, when it's tight, can definitely influence the low back. Bending the knees, switching it out, and always knowing that you can put a block underneath your hand. We'll reach up, push into the right heel, feeling that outer right hip talk to you. All right, bend the knees to relax. If you're using the blocks, get them back to center. Hinging, not bending. Rise up, reach up, get nice and tall, and then take the hands down by the sides. All right, moving into sun bees. We will need our strap at some point, so I'm going to put him towards the middle of my mat so I can grab him here in a second. Tennis balls we won't need till the very end of class. All right, here we go. Remembering to hinge, not bend. You'll hear me say that a lot. Sun bees. Inhale, rise up, reach up. Exhale, have a seat down in your chair, which is naturally taking you into that hinge rather than a bend. Take an inhale. Exhale, try not to bend. Keep the hinge, hands to the blocks of the floor. Inhale, fingertips to shins. Exhale, step on back into down dog. If you want a vinyasa, you know you're welcome to take one, but since this is a low back therapy class, well, we're going to skip it. Okay? All right, dropping to the knees. Take your hands to your hips. I'm placing my hands right here as if I had side pockets. These are the muscles we want to activate. Staring at your blocks, can you take your right foot and step forward and then step back? Can you take your left foot and do the same? Now, I want you to notice how much are your hands moving. Are you swinging and swaying in the hips as you're trying to do this, or are you being very robotic about this? Hips really strong, squeezing in as if your hips were in a vise. So we're going to be marching here for just a few more moments. We want these outer hips to start warming up. These muscles are so crucial to support your low back. All right. The next time that my right foot is in front, I'm going to pause and my hands will come down on either side. I'm going to spin the back heel down, anchor into my heels, and come up into warrior two. So I immediately check 5 toes pointing forward, knee through the middle of your foot, and then that back heel further back than the toes. We're not going to mess with this foundation. We're just going to stay right here. Take an inhale. On your exhale, drop the right forearm and reach the left hand all the way up overhead, spiraling that arm so the pinky is pointing down towards the floor. As soon as I'm set here and reaching and feeling that nice stretch on the ribs, I'm going to immediately come right back and pretty much do the opposite. This time the right hand comes up and I want to feel a nice big rib stretch on the right. So think up rather than back. Okay, we're going to do it again. Drop the right, reach forward with the left. Nothing's happening in the foundation other than pressure through the heels. And then I'm going to rise up and reach the right hand up rather than back. So encouraging length from the spine. So we're going to do this a few more times. What we're doing is we're really stretching and lengthening that low back area, almost pulling the spine right out of the hips. That area gets compressed so much throughout our day from sitting and just from gravity in general. So we're trying to lengthen out that area. One more, bring it all the way up. And then take the hands to the hips. We're going to turn the toes to the side. And then squaring off the feet, so all 10 toes are in the same direction, we're going to take a forward fold for the hamstrings. Relax the chin of the chest. You can always take blocks underneath the hands. And then as you fold, the butt is going to want to stick back further than the heels. See if you can do the opposite. Lean forward enough where the booty stacks on top of the heels, so you have this nice even hamstring stretch, and you don't feel more tension at the sitting bone area. Give me a big breath here. And then we'll slowly walk the hands towards the top of the mat. As soon as you're there, you're going to slide back into down dog, and then you're going to drop the knees. Place the hands in those side pockets and start your march again. It won't be quite as many this time now that you know what's going on. The lighter the foot tap, the harder it is. That doesn't mean that you can't reset. I'd rather you have really good form and hang out there for a moment. But if you're finding this relatively unchallenging, then you can lighten up that foot tap almost to a hover. Okay. Next time the left foot is forward, pause, hands come down. Spin the back heel down, anchor into your heels, rise up warrior two, stacking the shoulders on top of the hips. Now once you've set your 5 toes pointing forward and your back heel there, I want you to think about not letting the butt stick out. That long tailbone that we practiced when we were on our belly, by driving the belly button to the spine, hip points to ribs, we want to hold that position even though we're standing rather than laying. Take an inhale. Exhale, drop the left, sweep with the right, spiraling that arm, and then immediately bring it right back up and reach for the sky. Think up rather than back. So imagine your spine as a slinky. If you were to lengthen that slinky out, that would be your spine. But occasionally at the very bottom of that slinky, it gets compressed. Okay, those coils get closer together. So what we're trying to do with this is take that slinky and lengthen it all the way back out, all the way from the crown of the head to the tip of the tailbone. We got one more. And then we're going to take the hands to the hips and the toes to the side. This time we're going to take the heels in, the toes out, and just a little baby bend in the knees. This isn't a huge squat here, just enough to create some buoyancy. We're going to drop the right forearm and reach with the left. Again, pinky down, thumb up. And then I'm going to switch. Now I want you to start to play with the angles here. Right now I'm directly up overhead, which feels nice on my side bodies. But I know for me personally, if I reach just a little further forward, I get it all the way down into the low back, which feels really nice, especially if you're dealing with low back tightness. So rather than maybe directly overhead, play with coming forward a little bit and see what that does to the stretch. All right, hands down to the floor. We're going to walk ourselves forward, top of the mat, and then we're going to step forward, top of the mat. Bending the knees so that you're hinging, not bending. Inhale, fingertips to shins. Exhale, fold, maybe use the blocks. Inhale, rise up, get nice and tall. All right, second set. Chair pose, so this is the hinge, not the bend. Exhale, hands to the blocks to the floor. Inhale, fingertips to shins. Exhale, step it on back into down dog. If you want to bend your knees and take that really nice low back down dog, feel free. And then drop the knees. Hands to those side pockets. All right, so now you're familiar with this exercise. Here we go. Right foot forward and back, and then left foot forward and back. So can you be more precise? Maybe even just slowing it down, because the slower you go, the harder it is. But we should feel these outer hips really working hard to stabilize us so we're not swinging and swaying around in space. Okay, one more set. Next time the right foot is forward, we're going to pause and drop the hands. Spin the back heel down. Just as before, we're going to come right into that warrior two, but as soon as you're set, you know you're good through the foundation, we're going to straighten out that front leg. Okay? Forward and down, reaching that top hand for the front of the room, and then immediately coming right back up and reaching that top hand up rather than back. So again, these big rib stretches. So it's going to feel a little different with the legs being straight. Pressure to the ball of the front foot. And then again, just kind of visualize that slinky getting longer. We don't want to do anything to compress those coils. So we don't want to dump down here, and we don't want to reach all the way back. We want to think about that slinky being long, or almost like a garden hose. We don't want to kink up the hose in any way. Okay, last one, bring it up. And then this time, I want you to come forward and down to pause, hand resting on the shin. Top hand spirals forward. Now, as you reach the fingers, you're going to feel this lovely side body stretch. But just like we did in that goddess pose, can you reach and then roll slowly until you feel that line transfer and that stretch go right into that low back area, pretty much on the left side of the spine. It feels so nice. Take a big breath as you reach and roll. And then bring yourself all the way back up. Turn the toes. And then that goddess position, but just lightly. We don't want to go deep down into our squat. Okay? With the hands on the thigh bones or the knees, I'm going to take my heart over towards my left knee. And then I'm going to take my heart over towards my right knee. Now, what I want to be careful of is not to make this a big shoulder shove. Okay? We want to make this about turning the rib cage and massaging around the spine. Okay? One more in each direction. And then we'll take the hands to the floor. Walking it forward, sliding it on back into down dog, we'll immediately drop the knees. Okay? Hands to the hips. So this is our last set before we add on, all right? So make it your best. Bring it forward. Maybe you are slowing things down to offer a challenge. Maybe you are creating more lightness in the foot. And if none of that's happening, that's okay, because you still know that you are working with this, pretty simple motion. You're working on stabilizing those outer hips, which is going to be crucial for keeping the low back from moving too much asymmetrically. All right, once that left foot is forward, pause, hands come down. Spin the back heel down, anchor to the heels as you rise up just for a heartbeat of warrior two to check your foundation. Then we're going to push to straighten out the front leg. Reach forward and down. Remember, we don't want to kink up that hose. We don't want to compress the coils of our slinky. And then as you rise up, think up rather than back. So right through the crown of the head. Forward and down. And then all the way up. A lot of people will look up at the ceiling, which wrinkles up the back of the neck. And that might not feel like a big deal if you don't have low back pain. But for some of us, if you have low back pain by dumping into the back of the neck, that can radiate down into the low back and it feels like compression there. So give it a shot. Rather than looking up at your fingers, try just keeping your neck very neutral, reaching through the crown of the head. It might make a pretty big difference. Okay, one more forward, reaching through the crown of the head. And one more straight up, reaching through the crown of the head. All right, this time as you come down, you're going to pause, reach forward, and then as you reach, feel the ribs. As you reach and roll, feel more towards the low back. Big breath here. All right, bring yourself all the way back out of this. Turn the toes. We'll dive down, hands hit the floor, walk it forward. Slide back into down dog. If you want that low back down dog, go ahead. And then drop the knees. You're going to need your strap for this next part. I'm going to show you how to support the low back with the core. So these guys are kind of what we think of as equal but opposite. Anything that happens here can be reflected here and vice versa. If your low back is really tight and you've got this curve, it pushes the belly forward, usually creating weakness in the core. The opposite is true. If we strengthen the core and we really pull this in, then it lengthens the low back, decompresses those vertebrae, and causes more space in a good way. All right? So we can influence the two together. So with that strap, I'm going to lay down just like I started class pretty much. And I want the strap to be underneath me. So if you imagine your belly button going straight through you, we want that strap pretty much in that spot there. Okay? It's going to be where that low back curve tends to be. Now, some of us, if you already have a pretty big low back curve, you might not actually feel the strap underneath you. It's very mobile here. So we're going to fix that. If you can feel the strap, great. We're going to increase the amount of pressure we put on there. So hip points are here. So I'm going to place my fingers on my hip points, these sticky outy bones, and then my thumb on that bottom rib. And what I want to do is act like I'm squeezing them together. It's going to tuck my tailbone and it's going to smush me down into that strap. And then I'm going to bring it back to neutral, which might lift up off the strap depending on your low back curve. Bring it together and then release it. Okay? So I'm tilting my pelvis, I'm tucking my tailbone, and then I'm lifting my low back. Okay? So now, once I understand that motion, I'm going to take out that low back lift. I just want to keep myself smooshed onto the strap. And rather than kind of my fingers helping me out, can I create that hip points to ribs and hold it? Okay? And then relax. And then squeeze to hold it. I'll feel my tailbone kind of tuck and then relax. All right. So this time, can you tuck, hold, and then give that strap a little tug and see if you've actually smooshed it down? All right. So it might be enough for you to stay here and just practice that squeeze and tug, relax. Squeeze and tug, and you're going to stay there. If you feel like you've got that, I want you to lift your feet, which is going to take that glute out of it because some of you might have been pushing into the feet. So hips to ribs, check on that strap. Hips to ribs, check on that strap. All right, everything good? You can stay here, absolutely. Or hips to ribs, let's hold it there. So I'm going to hold that strap with tension, and then I'm going to start to drop the toes like I'm just dipping my toes into the pool. Now here's where it gets difficult because as the levers of the body go down, the low back wants to lift up to compensate. Our core has to smush ourselves down and protect that low back. So when we're doing core work, we're not just screwing with the low back, which a lot of people avoid core work because they're lifting their low back. Okay, so again, stay here. Or if you've got good tension, this is all feeling okay, hopefully a little bit of heat in the low belly, you can start to lengthen the levers of the body. So the longer your levers are, the longer your legs are, the more challenge it offers, because now my low back really wants to peel up off the floor and my core has to do double the work to keep it plastered down to the floor. So I'm constantly giving myself feedback with the strap. I'm constantly listening to my low back to make sure that it's belted down. And you want to do this to fatigue. So if you're already fatigued, then you're resting right now. Maybe you hit the pause button, but this is something that you can do every single day. It's one of the most effective things that I found with my low back clients that helps with that chronic low back pain is getting this front belt really secure. Okay, so I'm going to rest, Now, I definitely want to check for where my work was. My heat should be between my hip points mainly. I don't want it up here in the six-pack area. It means you might have been compensating with something you're more familiar with. So eventually we want to nuance it down more towards here. All right, I'm going to get rid of that strap. I'm going to roll myself on up. And then I've got one more set, one more flow here. So however you need to get to standing, feel free. The way I do it this way might be best for your low back. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the feet mat distance apart, knees over to the side. So we did this at the beginning of class. Then if I need to use my hands, I can. I'll roll onto my shins, which gets me to my knees. And then just like we did those marchings, one foot and the other can be a way to get up off the floor without aggravating the low back and doing a lot of bending. Okay, all right, last one. Here we go. Hinging, not bending. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, have a seat. Keep that low back nice and neutral. Forward fold, still keeping it neutral with a bend in the knees. Inhale, fingertips to shins. Exhale, step it on back into your down dog. Maybe that low back down dog if you like that variation. Okay, dropping the knees, hands to the hips. Adding on the glutes. We're going to step our right foot forward and pause. My right hand is going to find my right sitting bone. I need the area around my sitting bone to firm up, become steel. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to lean so far forward that I start to feel that glute stretch and firm up. Now I'm going to drive a hole through my mat with my heel. My toes are even lifted a little bit. And then see if I can, my back leg wants to lift. Put it back down. It looks really simple, but if you do it correctly and put all your drive through the foot, the front foot, it's pretty difficult. I can feel with my right fingers that muscle around the sitting bone area is very, very taut as I do this. The work is for sure in that low glutes area. I'm not feeling anything in my low back. For some of us, that knee might not be coming off the floor, and that's okay because this is a really difficult move, but it's crucial for our low glutes to be doing the work rather than our upper glutes, which might compress and annoy that low back area. Okay, one more, lean forward, press, maybe that knee lifts, and then set it back down. All right, hands to the floor. Lift your back knee, punch through that back heel, firm up the belly. Think about that TVA work we just did with the strap, low core, rise up, find a big breath here. On your exhale, drop the right, reach up and over with the left. You're going to find that nice big side body stretch. And just like we did in those other poses, can you reach and roll? As you reach and roll, you'll find more of it down towards that low back area, reach and roll. Okay, inhale, hands up overhead. Remembering how to keep that low back nice and flat. Can you bend, push, lift, warrior three? Absolutely, grab the blocks if you need to. I like to grab the blocks so that I can place a hand on the low back and guarantee that it's flat and that I haven't lifted one butt cheek higher than the other. One more breath in warrior three. And then grab a hold of those blocks. I'm going to let that left heel lift higher to get the hamstring stretch, but what I don't want to do is take the toes out to the side and again, allow that low back to skew. Maybe using that right hand, feel out your low back. I can lift that leg higher while maintaining a neutral low back, okay? So anytime you come into this standing splits variation, you might want to check that your back toes are pointed down and that low back is pretty neutral. Left foot is going to swing up, over, and across. Bend the knees. Walk your blocks over to the left. Relax the chin to the chest. And then allow your right hip to sass to the side. So you're pushing the right hip out away from you, finding that nice big stretch all the way through the outer hip and maybe kind of feeling like it radiates down the IT band. One more big breath here, and then we're going to finish up our last side of our last set. Walking the blocks back to center. Left foot is going to swing all the way to the back of the mat. Hands to the floor. Step back into your down dog, lengthen, and then drop the knees. All right, last bit of work right here. Hands to those side muscles. Left foot steps forward. Okay, left hand is going to find the sitting bone. I'm going to lean all my weight forward so I drive through the heel. And then can I push so hard through the heel that this muscle firms up and my knee might lift. What I'm not doing is lifting my right leg using my right quad. So I shouldn't feel a lot of work in my right leg. Everything should be in that left leg, especially that left low glute. Drive a hole through the floor with your heel. And if you put enough weight forward and enough force through that heel, that back leg should just kind of float naturally. And it's okay if it doesn't. All right, we got two more. We want these low glutes. Those are our workhorses. We want them to do their job so that the upper back isn't expected to do something that it's not really built to do. Last one. Whew. All right, come on back up. Hands to the floor. Push through your back heel to lift the knee. Secure that core so that it feels like your core is wrapping into your spine as you reach up, crescent pose. Big inhale. Exhale, drop the left, reach up and over with the right. Find that side body stretch. Maybe a little reach and roll. Whew, feel that low back. Good. Inhale, hands up. Look at your blocks. Warrior 3, bend, push, lift. Find that letter T with the body, creating that neutral low back. If you want to grab the blocks, feel it out. Make sure it's good to go. Take an inhale. And then hands to the blocks. Keeping that neutral low back, relax the chin to the chest, lift the right heel as high as what you feel comfortable with. We're trying to get this stretch on the left hamstring without radiating anything into the low back. So take a peek back at those toes, maybe feel out the low back. Give me a big breath here. Then with your hands on the blocks, we're going to take that right ankle up, over, and across. Bend the knees, stay buoyant as you walk the blocks over to the right. Relax the chin to the chest, and then let this left hip get sassy over to the side. If you need more of a stretch, you can take the blocks to a lower setting. If this is intense, go ahead and bend the knees some more and give yourself some slack. Take another big breath here. All right, walk the blocks back to center. Right foot's going to sweep all the way to the back of the mat. Hands come down, slide back into your last down dog. All right, dropping the knees. Go ahead and grab those 2 tennis balls. We're going to end with such a nice low back massage. This is going to be your new favorite, I promise. So grabbing a hold of your 2 tennis balls, we want to place them on either side of the tailbone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feel here on my low back, so where my spine comes into my hip crest, so kind of those rainbow shapes. I usually can feel 2 kind of buttons, 2 bony points. And then if I go right below them, I want to find soft tissue. And once you lay down and place the balls there, it's going to be pretty obvious if you're up too high because it's going to feel like you're on bone, because you are. We want to take them down to where it feels like soft tissue. So same position we've been in a few times here, knees bent, feet planted. I'm going to take 1 ball at a time, snuggle it up right against the tailbone. And then again, just judge like, yeah, that's too high. That's definitely bone. And then, oh, now I've got it. I've been able to kind of sink down into that soft tissue. I'm going to wiggle the feet a little further away from the body so my knees aren't bent so much. And then, if I want to close down the eyes, I can. Relax. Your body's first instinct is to tense up and protect you and push the balls away. So take a big breath, relax, and then wait until you feel everything soften. You want the body to take this as good pressure, as therapeutic pressure. This is a deep tissue massage. All right, so wait until you really relax and that the tennis balls kind of soak up into the muscles. Hey, bud. Came back for the good part, huh? All right, so once you have relaxed, you might just feel it is most productive to stay still and allow the pressure of the tennis balls to just slowly compress the tissues, which is going to be hydrating this area, releasing the tension from this area. You're good to go. Or if you've relaxed and this doesn't feel like it's too high on your sensitivity scale, I'm going to take the hips and kind of sway them across my mat, like I'm doing the hula, right and left. As I do this, I don't want to tense up my muscles because it's just going to push the tennis balls out. So I want to move slowly, lazily, almost like the tennis balls are like rolling through wet sand. You know, it's just very resisted and slow moving. Okay. As I do this, eventually the balls will kind of separate. So I'll want to place them back in their starting position, and I'm going to do it again. Okay. Now along this way, if I find something really good, like, oh, wow, my goodness, then you're just going to pause, relax the muscles of the legs so you're not moving anything, and just let yourself sink down. I want you to think of yourself as like ironing out a wrinkled shirt. As you're taking that iron across the shirt, you're trying to find the wrinkles, and when you find a really good one that's stubborn, you're just going to melt and just hold that iron on that wrinkle until it compresses itself. Then once it feels like, all right, I think that wrinkle's done, then you can slowly move back and forth until you find the next wrinkle. Okay, and again, anytime the tennis balls go so far apart that you kind of feel your butt drop down into the mat, you can always put the tennis balls back next to the tailbone. But the tennis balls getting that wide, sometimes you can find some really good stuff on the very edges of the hips. So make sure to get your biggest range of motion, sort it all out. This can get really addicting because it feels so good. So definitely set a timer. I'm keeping your timer here. But 3 to 4 minutes is really kind of the max. Sometimes if you stay here for, it's just feeling so good, so you're going to do this for 10 minutes and get out every single wrinkle. The body can send a lot of inflammation to the area because there's a lot of blood flow involved in this. And then sometimes it feels a little crankier when you're done just because you've got so much going on. So we definitely don't want to get to the point where we're feeling more stiff in the low back than when we started. So just a few more seconds here. I'm going to go back to the starting position one more time and just slowly go back and forth. And then if I take my knees and add them in, that's definitely another bit of sensation. But this is something that you can do, once a day. I would only recommend it once a day to start out with, but it's going to help relax the upper glutes, which tend to take more work than they should. And when they're doing their work, they're contracting and they tend to squeeze that tailbone area, and that whole low back area just feels like it's put on its parking brake. It's just it's latched on. So this is bringing a lot of healthy fluid to the area, breaking up all that knotted tension. All right, go ahead and release the tennis balls and then come down and pause for a second and notice this magical effect where the blueprint of your low back is completely changed. Like I feel like my low back is brand new. It's so different because I've relaxed the muscles around the tailbone. It feels brilliant. Okay, taking the tennis balls away from the body. Can you come back into that exact same starting position with the feet wide, knees together, hands down by the sides. Closing down the eyes, take a big cycle of breath. I'm going to ask you those same 3 questions, and I really want you to dig into your awareness and compare the answers to the beginning of class. Take a breath down the body and notice what is lifted up off the floor, if anything, and compare it with the beginning of class, noticing through all the work that you did, how that influenced the low back. Then breathe down the back and notice right from left. Are there any differences at all now? Did something get a little heavier, a little longer, a little lighter? Maybe something feels more symmetrical than it did before. And then finally, breathe down the body and search for any sensations, whether good or bad, and compare them with the beginning of class. Is that ache gone? Is that spike of pain still there? Does something feel more at ease and less effort? We always want to give the brain feedback of exactly what we did, how it influenced it, so that it can repeat that process. Once you've taken in all that information, if it's comfortable to lengthen out the legs, go ahead and do so. But if the low back still isn't allowing that, come right back into that position that we started class in. With the eyes closed down, take a moment to capture that breath. Deep inhales, complete exhales. And then begin to send your exhales down the body. And we want these little sonar waves to gather information. What does the back feel like? How is it different? We want to create that blueprint to give to the brain, so the brain recognizes that this is what we need each and every day to feel our best, that this is our best version of us. This is our new default mode. We don't want to go back to old habits of tension or stress or pain. So take just another minute here, breathing down the back line of the body, adding details into your blueprint so that your brain can latch onto it and help recreate it tomorrow. Keeping your eyes closed, take one more cycle of breath down the body. And then begin to wiggle fingers and toes, roll out wrists and ankles. Gather up just a little bit of energy to find a full body stretch as if you're waking up in the morning. Reach to the hands and the feet, lengthen the spine, feel out that new structure. And then gently draw the knees into the chest, maybe noticing the low back, the tailbone, the hips, how much better they feel. Maybe a little rock right and left if you'd like. And then when you're ready, there's no rush, we'll eventually roll onto the right side using the right arm as a pillow. Take a moment to feel grounded and heavy. Let's take a big cycle of breath here in gratitude of what that body was able to give you, what the spine was able to do. And then slowly press yourself up into a seated position, sitting up nice and tall. With hands to heart center, sit up tall, stack the shoulders on top of the hips, and again, just notice the spine. Sometimes when we've been in pain for so long, it's easy to go into this mode of autopilot, where there's always going to be pain, there's always going to be tension, it is what it is, and we just live with it. So take a moment now to really get rid of that autopilot, of recognizing that the spine is getting better, that there are differences, that you've managed to influence it in a positive way, and that by doing this more and more, it's only going to get better. Take a big inhale of gratitude for the spine that you have with the ability to move as it does, to support you all day long. It was my honor to lead you through this very special class. It is my hope that you are able to use these techniques throughout your day, every day, to eventually get to that very best version of you inside and out. Namaste.